So in one of my recent videos, I talked about how Sony in Japan, or just Sony in general, was scared of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the blazing path that it's on in Japan, because now it's starting to get the big AAA games that used to be completely Sony's territory in Japan. Before, in the past, still you'd get some third-party games on Nintendo Switch 1 or on 3DS or on Wii U, but for the most part, when it came to the biggest and baddest AAA Japanese titles, Sony got all of that revenue. So I do think that Sony was making some preparations to kind of combat that with the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, and we found out exactly what some of their plans were. And they had a state of play for Japan, really focused Japan titles, Asian titles, and the big announcement of a price drop of one model. Now, we knew that there was going to be a price drop based off of the rumors, which I did cover, but we didn't know all of the details surrounding that. Now, I want to get into that and how it's not going to be enough and what Sony actually needed to do in order to truly be competitive against Nintendo in Japan. But I guess it's a baby step at this point. Plus, we have a bunch of other great Nintendo Switch 2 news and more to go over. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First, with this PS5 Digital Edition Japan-only model has been announced. So Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asia has announced a Japanese language only SKU for PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. It will launch on November 21st for 55,000 yen. That is tax included, with pre-orders opening on November 13th. Now, the existing all languages SKU for the PlayStation 5 in Japan is currently priced at 72,980 yen, meaning the Japanese language SKU 17,980 yen cheaper and only 5,020 yen more expensive than the Japanese language SKU for the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's still a bit more expensive, but gets it closer. And we're going to talk about why that's important in just a bit, based off of what Capcom said if you missed my video. Now, the Japanese language PlayStation 5 can only be used with PlayStation Network accounts registered in Japan, and the system language can only be set to Japanese. So if you don't know Japanese, obviously this is probably not going to be for you. Now, there's new commercials and all sorts of stuff there, which I do like the fact that they're trying to lower the price. It's not much more than a Nintendo Switch 2. They've got some good stuff, but I think the problem is that it's only the digital model in Japan, and I'd even say worldwide. Yes, more people are adopting digital and it's becoming more of a thing, but I think people still want the option to potentially have physical, as people do have a mix of libraries depending on what type of game it is or what type of deals you can get and when you decide to buy that game. So in my opinion, locking it down to only digital, where with Nintendo Switch 2 it is completely physical and digital. There is both. There is no only digital models. I think they should have dropped the price of the physical and the digital. Now, if you look at Japanese sales a lot like I do, I see that the physical PlayStation 5 sells more than the digital PlayStation 5. And yes, this price drop on the digital only PlayStation 5 will probably increase sales quite a bit in the short term, and we'll see about the long term. But I do think that it's just a move that it's like one step forward but two steps back. Now, on top of that, what else they did was they showed off a bunch of expensive accessories along with this. So what is the price drop for? When you're showing off expensive sound systems, you're showing off an expensive monitor, you're showing off a $200 portable, all of these things that's supposed to help you save money with the PlayStation 5, you're layering on top to make it just more and more expensive. Oh, on top of the PlayStation 5 that's all digital. So if you're someone that wants to upgrade in Japan and you're saying, okay, I have a PS4, I have a bunch of games, but if I upgrade to this cheaper model, I can't play my physical games from PlayStation 4. I have to buy an $80 disc drive in order to do that, which once again negates the price drop that you're getting even in the first place. That's why I would have loved to see an actual price drop on the physical model PlayStation 5 in Japan, because it's gotten 2 price increases in the last number of years. So while I do think it's good that they're offering a cheaper model, I think that they didn't nail this presentation in terms of how it was supposed to be if you want to properly combat and really go against the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan. But I do like the fact that Nintendo is doing so well that it is prompting Sony to move things based off of what the Capcom president had to say, where he said, hey, look, the PS5 is just too expensive. It's affecting our sales of Monster Hunter Wilds. Well, maybe with this cheaper digital PlayStation 5, the fact that Monster Hunter Wilds is a game that's updated all the time, people can pick up this PS5 and Monster Hunter Wilds, and it'll be a bit more affordable for them. But still, not a great showing overall when it comes to the games. This would have been a perfect opportunity to reveal some type of big Japanese game, new title that you've been working on when it comes to showing strength and confidence with the brand. Pretty much all of Sony's games are developed in Western territories when it comes to first-party stuff. There isn't a lot of Japanese games, and I felt that maybe this might be an opportunity to reveal something that's built specifically with the Japanese audience in mind from a first-party standpoint, a brand new game, and there was nothing. There was no one more big thing. This overall was an okay presentation with some of the games, but it fell flat when it comes to surprises. Presentation was great. I thought that the host guy, he does a lot of anime stuff and all of that in Japan. That was great. It looked really clean, but it was a lot of just clean looking and window dressing and nice plate. But when it comes to the actual content of it, there wasn't a ton of surprises. A lot of these games were already announced on other platforms, and to me, it just lacked what you needed for an actual presentation to truly make a dent with what you're trying to do. But it is somewhat of a start at least. So what do you guys think about this when it comes to the presentation that Sony had with the different games and all that? I felt that it was okay, but once again lacked some punch, lacked some real star power from Sony themselves when it comes to first party. That was one of my issues, along with a number of other things that I talked about. So what do you guys think? Let me know, but I don't see the Nintendo Switch 2 slowing down. I don't see this slowing it down at all, but it is something to probably help increase the sales a bit in Japan, because they are getting absolutely destroyed in Japan right now by Switch 1 and Switch 2. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But before we move to the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. Okay, let's talk about this next big thing that's happening potentially for the Nintendo Switch 2 and Xbox, and that is a huge PlayStation console exclusive game, Stellar Blade, coming over to other platforms, which we did kind of already know. There was hints, there was rumors. It was a game that originally was supposed to be multi-platform with like Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and older systems and everything like that, maybe even Xbox Series, but Sony kind of jumped in. They scrapped all that, they retooled it, took some time before they were able to show it off again and brought it back. And I think it ultimately ended up being a better game because of it. But that is timed. It's a timed exclusive, and there's more to the story here, because Shift Up says that they are thinking about expanding Stellar Blade to additional platforms. Quote, to further enhance brand recognition and boost sales, we plan to carry out various promotional activities and are considering additional platform expansions to make Stellar Blade accessible to more players. To me, that sounds like a Nintendo Switch 2 port 100%, because guess what happened just a bit ago? The lead of Shift Up gifted every single employee a Nintendo Switch 2. So what are you doing with that? Well, obviously you're getting familiar with the hardware. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? How does it play? Of course, dev kits, but you want to know about the system if you're really going to develop a game, especially a game that was built for PlayStation 5 and PC. Obviously, you want to know what makes the Nintendo Switch 2 tick. So I think that gifting everybody in the studio is good. And of course, Nintendo's definitely probably getting them or already having dev kits over at Shift Up. So I would expect there to be a Stellar Blade Nintendo Switch 2 version in addition to a Xbox version of Stellar Blade as well. But I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 version can really make some waves in Japan and in certain parts of Asia where the Nintendo Switch 2 has really taken off overall. We talked about the big three when it comes to the United States, Japan, and Europe with the Nintendo Switch 2, but other parts of Asia and other areas, it's not doing too bad overall. Nintendo's picking up millions plus in sales when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 in other regions. That's really helping out, and that's why it's had that record-breaking 10.36 million units sold before we even get into the thick of the holiday. So I do think that Stellar Blade is probably coming over. There was already rumors about it. They're already talking openly about more platforms. I think Switch 2 is definitely in the mix here. I did play the game extensively on the PlayStation 5, and I do think it's a great game. They did a PS5 Pro update, and it plays great on there. There hasn't been a ton of big price drops for this game. It's been selling pretty steady, nothing crazy overall, but the PC release did huge numbers in terms of the type of game that it is when it comes to Stellar Blade. So the fact that they've been stable and they've been pretty good with the sales, it's a profitable IP. They are expanding and doing other things with it, and I expect it to be around, and it's a good game. I played it. It's a fun game. It's not just Gooner bait like some people say. It's actually a really fun, I would say, people try to say it's like Bayonetta, but it's not really quite like Bayonetta. It feels like a mix of like Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, and maybe even sometimes Souls games, and maybe a little bit of Bayonetta in there, but it also has some like third-person shooter in it as well. It's a really weird type of game. It's kind of hard to describe completely how it feels to play, but it doesn't feel like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. It doesn't quite feel like that. It feels more like Souls, and like I said, kind of like a weird third-person at times shooting and action adventure type of game, even like God of War Ragnarok or God of War 2018. It's a mix of kind of all of that put into one with some Souls wrapping over it as well. So it's one of those things to where you have to kind of play it to really understand how the game is, but it's not quite like Bayonetta for those that were saying it's like Bayonetta. It's just not. What do you guys think about Stellar Blade probably coming over to Nintendo Switch 2 and Xbox in the future? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, let's move on to the next topic here, and this one was a pretty interesting announcement for the recent Sony State of Play in Japan, but it's actually coming over to all platforms, PS5, Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch, and that is BlazBlue Entropy Effect X. This is a very interesting name for a franchise that I actually love, which I'll tell a pretty interesting little story at the end of this, but let's get into the actual content here. So publisher Astrolabe Games and developer 91 Act will release side-scrolling roguelike action game BlazBlue Entropy Effect for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch on February 12th, 2026 as BlazBlue Entropy Effect X, the company announced. Physical editions will be available for the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch, so digital only for Xbox, day and date with digital release. Physical and digital pre-orders are available now at this point. So BlazBlue Entropy Effect first launched in early access for PC via Steam on August 15, 2023, which I had no idea. So here's some more information about the game. BlazBlue Entropy Effect X is a roguelike action game set in the BlazBlue universe, featuring striking 2D visuals, stylish fast-paced combat, and precise responsive controls. Command a lineup of unique characters from the renowned BlazBlue franchise and dive into an unparalleled action experience. Here's the story. A mysterious domain known as the Lab, a group of elite researchers race to save a collapsing world. However, despite their efforts to date, Dr. Macarius, head of the laboratory, still warns the world's downfall is near. In a last-ditch effort, the Urgent Research Possibility Initiative seeks to collect shards of possibility, a special fragment of which the world could forestall the seemingly inevitable destruction. These shards lie within the Sea of Possibility, a realm between worlds beyond the bounds of reality. The protagonist, Ace, is the only being capable of diving into the sea, guided by the elite researchers at the lab. Ace descends again and again to pursue the salvation until strange visions take hold and his body begins to change. As Ace continues to dive, countless memories flood his mind, and the truth behind the collapsing world and the research itself begins to surface. So the only thing that I'm already kind of like apprehensive about, I think the game looks incredible, but like the whole Rogue situation, like I'm still not a huge Rogue fan. I know Hades 2, I've talked about how great that is, Hades 1, but a lot of games are becoming Rogue. I think Rogues are great as a mode in a game, but as like the main thing, I kind of just want to go by and play the story, and then maybe you could unlock a Rogue mode. But I know that a lot of Rogue games need to be built like that from the beginning to truly take advantage of what it is to be a great Rogue game. So I understand that, but overall, man, I just wish that it was just the normal game. I do like BlazBlue, to kind of give you guys that little story that I was talking about. BlazBlue is one of the first games that I got into when it comes to competitive fighting games, so I always have a special place in my heart because my friend in college really loved BlazBlue, and I used to watch him play, and he got me into watching the competitive tournaments and all of that. So shout out to BlazBlue, one of my favorite franchises out there. But I do wish that it was a regular game. It is only $24.99 here in the US, so that's not too bad. And there's a digital deluxe edition for $34.99. So interesting stuff there overall. And I do think that the game looks really slick. I think that the game didn't come to Nintendo Switch 2, at least native, because of the developers. I've never heard of these people, so I doubt they had a Nintendo Switch 2 development kit. So maybe we actually get an update, or hopefully the Switch 1 version's actually good, so we don't have to worry about that or have blurry visuals or stuff like that. So hopefully they did enough to optimize it in terms of how it can play to when you play the Switch 1 game on Switch 2, there's no problem there. So February 12th, 2026, the game is dropping and it looks nice. So what do you guys think about BlazBlue Entropy Effect X for Xbox, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, last topic, that's the Pokemon Pokopia controversy that's kind of going down, but we have some information first to go over. So the game will launch officially on March 5th, 2026. That's actually a bit sooner than I thought. And there is going to be a new trailer that you can watch on November 13th. So if it's past that time or on that day, that trailer should be available to watch. Now, here's where the problem kind of comes into play, because this game was kind of weird. It's a Pokemon spinoff. It's made by Koei Tecmo. It's made by some of the Dragon Quest Builders team, and it looks like it's going to have a lot of potential in terms of what it can do. However, the game is a full-priced $69.99 overall, and the game is also going to be on a key card. Now, the game is split when it comes to the publishing. Here in the West, it seems like Nintendo is handling the publishing duties, but in Japan, the game will be published by the Pokemon Company. So it's a bit of a split on there. And with this game, it's a game key card. So there are a number of issues that people have brought up with that. One, the small file size, the fact that the game is only around 10 gigabytes. Maybe it goes a little bit higher before launch. Maybe it's a little bit lower, but it seems like it's going to be right around 10 gigabytes. But also too, because Nintendo actually is publishing this one, and it seemed like Nintendo was stating that they weren't going to do game key cards with anything that they put out. But of course, you can kind of look into that statement and say, well, wait a minute, they actually did not develop Pokemon Pokopia, which is technically true. They're just doing some of the publishing here in the West, and in Japan, it's the Pokemon Company. So I can understand that, but still, I do think people were feeling that anything that has the Nintendo publishing moniker on there, that it's not going to be a game keycard. But technically speaking, they said anything that they make overall. They did not make Pokemon Pokopia. That is Koei Tecmo, and that's Game Freak, the Pokemon Company. That's really their game overall. So I want to know more about this game. Now, I don't think I'm going to pick this one up as a game keycard and also $70, but I want to see how expansive is it. Is it a game that's going to get a ton of extra free DLC or extra added elements? Does it have a ton of streaming elements to it to where you can go anywhere with no problem whatsoever in a huge expansive world that also potentially has multiplayer components and other things that you can do when it comes to terraforming and building the land and all these different things that would benefit from actually streaming on the fastest available memory, which would be the flash memory or a game key card or on an SD card, which that's much faster than a game cartridge, which we've seen speeds when it comes to like Mario Kart, for example, much faster if you have it on your internal memory compared to having it on a cartridge. So are there things like that that kind of prevent it a bit from having certain things with a card compared to being digital? So I understand where some people are looking at it and saying, what the heck, look at these graphics, look at the game. So far, there's no way that it's worth that price, and it's like a double whammy that is a game key card as well. So I understand it. I mean, I said this on Twitter, like, I'm not so sure about this one, but I do want to see what else this game offers. They really haven't shown too much, and I think that's where a lot of the impressions come from. It's like, okay, well, you're charging 70 and it's a game key card for a game that looks like this. Well, what else does it do? So there's going to be a new trailer on November 13th. I think that some people might have already made up their mind. I've pretty much already made up my mind. But if this game turns into some type of massive, huge, even way better than Dragon Quest Builders in terms of what it did, I might look into it when there's a discount or something like that. Or maybe I even get a review code. Who knows? Maybe I'll check it out in that type of way. So what do you guys think when it comes to everything that we talked about here with Pokemon Pokopia, controversy, shift up, and what's going on with Stellar Blade, BlazBlue, and of course the situation in Japan? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.